Hello and welcome to part 4 of my 18-part Plaits video manual. This is Mr. Basic. In this video I will cover the third model on the left, or the green side, using the left button. The two-operator FM mode presents two sine wave oscillators modulating each other's phase. Now quickly, what the knobs say, starting with the harmonics knob, is that the harmonics knob changes the frequency ratio, and I'll show and tell you more about that. And the timbre knob, or timbre knob, changes the modulation index, and I'll talk and show you a little more about that. And lastly, the morph knob adds feedback in the form of operator 2 modulating its own phase to the left, or modulating operator 1's phase to the right. Okay, and now I'll explain and show a little more what each parameter means in very simple terms, while you can hear and see on the oscilloscope to help you understand. Now, I'm going to turn up this attenuator, which is the main out from the module. This is the signal that's coming from the main out. Change this frequency knob. This is one of our operators, and this frequency knob it's got some sweet spots, and what those are is they're a ratio that's a simple ratio, like a 1-to-1 ratio, and a 1-to-2 ratio, and a 1-to-3 ratio. These different and 1-to-4 ratio, these different very simple ratios will create waves that are smoother and nicer between the two operators. And the ratio isn't only determined by the harmonics knob. Technically it is, but if you think about it, it's really the distance between the two frequencies you've got in either the frequency knob or the harmonics knob. And so if they're both in a place like this, a sweet spot, where so you got your operator going at a wave like that, then you pretty much, you've got your divisions. Your divisions you can see by it's not so choppy. It's going to be your simple multiplications, and then you can do more complicated ratios, and you're going to get more harmonics as well. But the timbre knob is very simple on this FM mode. It's just your amount of ratio. The thing is, you've got your ratio with the harmonics knob. That's your distance between the frequencies of the two operators. And the timbre knob is really going to add to that same ratio. It's going to add another ratio, and then the more you add, it's going to multiply that ratio. It's going to keep multiplying it into infinitum until you've got more and more harmonics, and that's spikes. It's those spikes that you see. And this is kind of what I like to say is more of a sweet spot, where you've got quite a bit of folding going on from the frequency modulation, but you've also got some simpler math going on, some simpler numbers in there, and it's kind of a balance between the two. So going up further with the frequency knob, starting out at a higher frequency for that one operator, if you bring the other operator down with the harmonics knob, then what you've got is a different type of folding of that wave, a different type of skewing. It's not really folding. What it kind of looks like it, but what it is it's intensifying those spikes. They start out with no spikes, and then they intensify and intensify more as you add the timbre knob. But where the spikes are is chosen by the harmonics knob and the frequency knob. But then your amount, your intensity goes up with that timbre knob. Or down and up. And it's more intense because you're actually adding, you can't see with this resolution of oscilloscope, but you're adding more and more harmonics in there and more in between. So that it's just so that's why you see that solid space. There's so many harmonics just right next to each other, being intensified, resonating, over-resonating. And we'll get to the morph knob here in just a sec, but I wanted to show you more of having that harmonics knob lower than the frequency knob. And that's what you get. You get these solid things based on those solid shapes are made of harmonic spikes. But they're so close together that it creates this nice resonation. And that was an inverted sine with a sine. It's basically it's enough to invert the entire signal on itself. So you want to note where I've got those knobs there in the general area, and you'll have to tune it yourself. Note I'm just tuning all of this by both by ear and by what I see on the oscilloscope. I can tune it in, but you should be aware that it's very, very tiny movements. Now that's the sub-oscillator that I'm turning up here. The sub-oscillator is coming out of the aux output. And you can have it just by itself, or you can have it as a companion to the main output. And the sub-oscillator is just doing a 1 octave down sound of the signal coming out of the regular out. So what I've got going on with these two attenuators in this Aeon modular attenuator module, that's very wonderful, and it has bigger knobs than anything in Eurorack, in general. See that? There's the sub-oscillator by itself. And without the sub-oscillator. And so it also can mess with your wave as well, with your regular wave. If you add a sub-oscillator, it'll mess with the harmonics and with the spikes, and a lot of times it'll take down the spikes and make it a bit more rough or smooth, depending on what you're doing. Now with the harmonics and frequency up a little bit higher, we're seeming to be at the same 1-to-1 ratio here. And you can get a lot of really smooth things going on. Now, compared to the older module braids, this is a little bit smoother than the regular FM, which will be found when the morph knob is at 12 o'clock. Now, if it's all the way to the left like this, you get a rough signal that is roughly equivalent to what was found on the old Braids module as WTFM. And to the right, it's a little bit shimmery, lighter, higher. That's more like the Braids' old FBFM mode. And of course, in the middle, like I said, it's a smoother signal with the morph in the middle, because you've got no feedback going on. And it's also a smoother signal than is found in the old Braids mode that's labeled FM. We're just showing you all the places, all the sweet spots that are see, there's a simple mathematical ratio, then up to the next simple mathematical ratio, and there are these ratios all along this knob that you'll find that are the simpler mathematical ratio, and those will give you your smoother sounds that you can also then intensify with the timbre knob and make them not so smooth. I'm messing with the ratio by bringing the frequency knob down again. The frequency knob by itself has its own ratios it likes to be at, more or less, and so the harmonics knob is really the modulator here, and it needs to fall in line with what the frequency knob is doing. The timbre knob is just a mount. The morph knob is just feedback. Feedback. Two different types of feedback. A little rougher, slower, a little more lighter, shimmery on the right end. See how it takes out those harmonics by just intensifying so much that it then smooths out the spikes. And it just sounds like resonation. Like it's resonating too much. Add the sub-oscillator. That gives you a little bit of a wobble. It also adds its own sort of rhythm that either adds or takes out, usually takes out harmonic spikes. I would really recommend that anybody using this will also hook up your aux out as a companion to the regular out and use that sub-oscillator to shape your sound as well. And if you don't like that much bass, then you can low cut it some way afterwards. There's some big wobble there. Noting that our sub-oscillator is all the way up. And the morph slows that wobble when you go to the left and add that feedback. And that kind of feedback is operator 2 modulating its own phase. And to the right, it's operator 2 modulating operator 1's phase. Thank you. And next time, we will go over the next model, which is the Formant Model. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.